Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Hospitality Talks. My name is Sam-Erik Ruttmann, and next to me in this very colorful jacket is my co-host Abid Butt. Hi, Abid. How are you doing?
Very well, Sam. And yourself?
I'm really good. Just curious question. Where did you get this jacket? It's really awesome. I think I get it myself, one of those. Match with my bow tie.
I specifically wore that because it's summertime, so it's all cheerful time. So I only keep it for special occasions, and today is a very special occasion. So great to be here. Welcome, everybody, for all of you who are joining us on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's great to have you back. We've got a fabulous session planned for you with two of the travel professionals from almost different parts of the world that would help us understand how markets are preparing to reopen and welcome the guests back. A lot of the nations around the world rely very heavily on travel and tourism dollars, and it contributes a great deal to their GDP. And with the COVID, we want to understand what the markets are doing to make sure that their visitors are safe, their residents are safe, and how best they communicate. So if it's okay, Sam, we can invite Janne-Juhani Haarma from, he's CEO of Visit Yllas from Finnish Lapland.
Your pronunciation is outstanding. I'm impressed. Very, very well. Good done. Good job.
See, I practiced, Sam.
Yeah.
It didn't come easy.
I can appreciate that. So let's get Janne-Juhani here online here.
Jan, welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, thank you for taking the time. You are enjoying the endless sunlight these days, so we appreciate you taking the time to take part in this session. Just so that everybody knows your destination, as I said in the introduction, you're from Finnish Lapland, but maybe a very brief introduction for our visitors. It is a fabulous place. I won't do it as much of a justice, so I'll let you introduce it very briefly, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Abid. Thank you very much. So Yllas lies about 170 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle in the Finnish Lapland. We're all year-round destination, now enjoying the 24 hours of sunlight, and of course in the wintertime, plenty of snow and northern lights blazing in the sky. We were just chosen as the outdoor destination of the year in Scandinavia. We were proud to say that we've been developing the destination from a winter destination to an all year round heaven for the active loving customers.
Oh, fantastic. A very unique destination, attributes that are specific to your place. As of now, Jan, this destination is mostly a winter destination, winter sports, winter safaris. Tell us a little bit about how the 2019-2020 season was destination.
Thank you, Abid. It's really true. We had a record season all the way until the early March, with all-time high both domestic and international guests. But then, of course, things changed with the COVID-19. We were fairly late in the game, as our customers mainly come from mainland Europe. So our season was international season was coming to a close. But of course, the domestic season going all the way until end of April meant that we were cutting the season short in the end of March. So we were lucky to have a sort of record season until middle of March, which meant that a lot of the companies had a fairly substantial buffer to face the difficulties that we're all facing now. And now we've been reopening again in the 1st of June for domestic travel. And now the 15th of June, we will open the Norwegian border, which means that we're slowly getting back into the game.
Jan, when did you start to see the changes in travel patterns, or was it the government-induced lockdowns and cautions that they had put in place?
Very good question. Some areas in Lapland rely heavily on the Asian market. So basically, we got the first indications that this is going to be a global phenomenon in basically early February. But for us, as we have very few Asian customers, we sort of thought, okay, are we going to dodge the bullet, or is it going to hit us? But then, of course, as the pandemic sort of went forward, we were seeing it being global thing. But fortunately for us, our international season was coming to an end in March, which meant that we only missed a few groups. So we didn't have to sort of cancel any flights at the end of the season. But then with the domestic travel, we had to close down the ski resorts and the cross-country ski tracks and the winter biking tracks. We did it voluntarily to comply with the government recommendations, because a lot of people were still coming north. A lot of the Finns were still traveling up north for skiing. And we said that we have to be responsible and we have to take part, even if the government doesn't say that we have to close. But we wanted to be responsible and close on our own.
And hats off to the country, and hats off to the citizens of the country. You are far better off today than some of the other countries, what they're going through. So obviously those measures paid off in a big way. Jan, I'll turn it over to Sam here in a second, but before I turn it over, help us understand. Now, you mentioned that you have been trying to position the destination as a year-round destination as opposed to just a winter destination. Help us understand some of the things that you have done in a COVID-free era, and then how would you do that moving forward?
Thank you. Very good question. First of all, as we were mainly known as a winter destination, about 85% of our clients came in from beginning of December to the end of April. But of course, from investment perspective and from the sustainability perspective, we have to start thinking about the big picture. We have to start thinking about the year-round as a year-round destination. So in 2017, we made a major rebranding of the destination from a sort of ski resort to an outdoor resort. And this was the first major and very important step. So you have to first, in order for your clients to understand what you are, you have to understand yourself what you are. And from that point on, we very sort of strategically started taking measures of promoting, basically putting more euros in summer marketing, and first image and then more tactical sort of marketing campaigns. And it's worked very, very well. For instance, last season, we had a growth of 95% in the sales of mountain biking products in the area. So, and already we're moving from a lot of the companies, it used to have 6 months, and now we're all 7 years of good business months. So it's been an encouraging journey, but of course it's far from over. And right now we're about I think 78% and 22% winter and summer.
Oh wow! Okay, fabulous. Sam, you can speak to this destination far better than I can. So over to you.
Well, I probably have a very special Yllas in that area. Is really kind of a special place in my heart, because I've had a chance to visit it a couple of times, and particularly unforgettable to be in January when the sun is starting to get up and the colors, which you cannot describe. You have to be a phenomenal artist to able to replicate that. But and also something I have a couple of questions really of looking at Yllas in the future, and people are talking about group tourism, which is obviously important because you're bringing the masses, but then you also have the kind of a traveler who is experiential traveler. He wants to experience something and he wants to see something that maybe is a life-changing experience. He's going to a new unknown area. So could you share with us about Yllas? What is special about Yllas? What is that part which is for someone who doesn't want to book a charter and go skiing somewhere, but want to go on their own or maybe with a friend or loved ones just to experience something, or simply in solitude want to do something special?
I think you're exactly on the right track. That we are definitely a destination which is very, very unique, and the uniqueness comes from nature. We are truly an Arctic destination. As I mentioned in the beginning, we are 170 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, and that means that we have distinct different seasons, and they bring their own sort of flavor to every visit. As you mentioned, the polar night is a very, very special time. For us, it's about early December till the middle of January, when we have only very little daylight, about 4 hours each day. But it's a very special kind of light. It's pinkish and bluish hues and extremely beautiful sunrises and sunsets. And then moving forward from January, the days start to get longer very fast. We get about 45 minutes more daylight each week when going towards the spring. And it's the time where the nature wakes up and the people wake up, and it's bears are still sleeping, but everyone else is waking up, and it's transformation, and that's it's transformation in people and it's transformation in nature. And I think this is something that people usually don't understand about the Arctic region, is that people have this very static sort of image in their mind that it's all ice and snow and all the time like that. But it's exactly the opposite. In the Arctic, things are always constantly changing from one season to the other, and that's why we say that we have 8 seasons instead of 4, because we have distinct seasons with the animals and the nature and the people doing different things and enjoying life in the present, not dreaming about future, not worrying about the past, but sort of concentrating and being present in that particular season. And I think that's one of our strengths. You have eight reasons to visit us, and
it's more than in South where we have only 4 reasons to come. So you have 8. That's really good.
Exactly. Yeah, and then of course that brings us with the Northern Lights and the 24 hours of sun. Northern Lights from late August till early April, and then Northern Light. 24 hours of sunlight from early June till the end of July. So that makes us it's a really special place to live and to visit, of course.
Well done. That's now, Abid. Now you know a little bit more about Yllas.
Absolutely. See, when I came to visit you a couple of years ago, we should have taken a trip there.
Well, I put Abid in prison right away in Helsinki at the Katajanokka Hotel. I have another question here for Jan, if I may, before I hand over to Abid. Relating to what is in a lot of people's lips is about the climate change. And in southern Finland, we pushed all the winter up to you, and you had all the snow. What are your thoughts about the changes in the climate, and how would that affect the Arctic Lapland? I mean, not just as a scientist, but just looking at because you live there, you see it every year.
Yes, thank you. Very good question. What I would say is that there's definitely a change in the air, and you can feel it. Of course, the human scale is different than a global weather pattern scale, but you can see it very well. It's been very warm here now, like plus 25 centigrade for a long period of time, and this is very unusual for this time of year. But then it also sort of the weather patterns are changing in a way that we have more extreme weather. It's hotter than it used to be. It rains more. We had a record amount of snow this season. The winter season was very long. We opened the cross-country ski tracks in late October, and people were skiing even in the beginning, of this month, in the beginning of June. So we had a very long winter season, but the weather patterns are moving faster than before. We used to have very stable weather from beginning of January till the end of February, basically cold and dry climate. But now you have the temperatures are fluctuating and it's much more unpredictable. And some years we have had problems in the beginning of the season in November, which used to be a very snow secure month. That just last year in 2018-2019 season, we were very close to not being able to start with the safaris in the end of November. Lucky just when the charter planes came in the 1st of December, we're just in time. But that was a very close call, and that hasn't been the case ever before. So things are definitely changing, and we need to be very aware of this and do everything we can to stop the change.
Thank you for your comments there. I really appreciate it. And over to you, Abid.
Jan, pardon me. Your key feeder market continues to be Europe first and foremost, and possibly US. Tell us how that has evolved over the last 5 years or so. How are you communicating with the visitors that come and visit you? Help us better understand a bit of your demographics, please.
Yes, thank you. We've been almost for 15 years. We've been a destination for the UK market. Very popular for skiing holidays, as the UK doesn't have very strong sort of skiing culture in UK. So the people usually go to the Alps, but the Alps are a little bit more suited for good or intermediate or advanced skiers. But we offer a very good place for family skiing. The slopes are always in excellent conditions because of the very sort of solid conditions and very natural snow and cold temperatures. So that's sort of where it all began in a way in the wintertime. But then as we've been moving more towards sort of activity-based tourism, meaning huskies, reindeer, and snowmobile safaris, which are very, very popular. And of course, the Northern Lights is the unique selling point of the North. And with this development of these different activities, we've been able to attract people even from the traditional sort of countries that would go to the Alps for their winter holidays, meaning Switzerland, Germany, and the Dutch. And the newest addition is Belgium, which has been growing very rapidly in the past few years. But then I think it was a sort of twist in travel industry that everyone was about 5 years ago in 2015. Everyone started to look for the north. The temperatures were hotter in southern and middle and southern Europe, which meant that some areas in the Alps were having problems with the snow, and we could always guarantee snow in the wintertime. So then people started to look north, and we were ready, offering very good activities and very high quality service. And that way we got the reputation of here having excellent activities and all around package. Very well organized society, and our infrastructure is very good, and we're used to the weather. If it's a snowstorm, it doesn't mean that the transportation doesn't run, and it means that doesn't mean that the airplanes don't fly. We're used to this weather, and we can handle everything, so everything works smoothly, even if the weather is sometimes might
Fantastic.
be extreme.
Fantastic. That is terrific. Any thoughts on how the destination will change or adapt in while we live with COVID, and how will you be communicating that out to your visitors?
Very good question. Thank you. We were, as mentioned earlier, you said that we, as a nation, Finland took things very seriously right from the start of the epidemic, and that has played a really big part in sort of us gaining confidence that the measures that we do are correct, and we did them very, very, very sort of efficiently. We haven't had any new cases here in Lapland since almost early April, so we've been sort of COVID-free for more than 2 months, and we've been very efficient in replacing the systems that, okay, you have the plexiglass in between the customers and the employees, and then you have ample supply of disinfectants and rubber gloves, and the masks are used when necessary. And so we as a nation, as Finns, we usually take rules very seriously, and that means that in these kind of situations, it's a big advantage. And we were able to contain the virus very quickly. I think we've had less than 20 cases in the past week, and no new fatalities. So it's been a very sort of, I think, a success story for the Nordic way of sort of doing things and our welfare system. But then again, going forward, I think this is the way that we can assure the markets that we are ready and we're taking this seriously and we are very organized. Is that the same thing that we dealt with the pandemic, and we have very, very good relationship with the health organizations and the governmental organizations, where we have very strict rules on how we would do disinfecting all the clothing, shared clothing, helmets for the safaris and whatnot. So we're very prepared for everything.
Well, Jan, one last question. There are several others, but one last question, and I'm going to bring our next guest in. You have all the natural elements, lots of outdoors activities. So in some ways, it is really attractive for visitors, particularly in COVID environment, because it's not in large crowds or spending time indoors. It is all about spending time outdoors.
Exactly.
Help us understand about the experiential travel market. Sam talked about it a little bit. What are some of the things that your visitors seek out while they are with you in Yllas?
I think one of the Belgian tour operators said it very well, that when we were asking him that what should we offer your clients, and he said, come to Belgium, look around, and offer the people something that we don't have. And that's clean air, space, solitude, quietness, and sort of, we are right on the edge of Pallas-Yllästunturi National Park, which is the largest national park, most popular national park in Finland. And the cleanest air in the world was measured by the World Health Organization in the park in 2016. So this is, of course, a very unique selling point for us. And to answer your question in a nutshell, I think what we can offer people is to reconnect back with nature. If it's winter, if it's summer, it's just to get back into that mode that you don't have to be connected to all these devices and all your social media accounts all the time. This is the perfect place to sort of put your phone down, maybe even forget your phone in the hotel cabin, and just yourself and enjoy your family and enjoy the nature around you. And I think this is the perfect place of the sort of the everyday life.
That's fantastic. I very much look forward to visiting you soon. There are several other questions, Jan, that I have. Please stay with us. At this particular point, I'm going to bring in our next guest from a very different locale that he looks after, Jens Thraenhart, who is the Managing Director of Mekong Tourism Coordinating Office. Jens, welcome to Hospitality Talks. Jens, I think you might be muted.
Thank you, Abid. Thank you, Sam. It's a pleasure to be invited to be on your show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Jens. You look after a very large region. You work with a multinational organization. Just for our viewers, Jens, just a very brief description of the countries that you are involved with and sort of the coordination that you take care of.
Great, thank you. So the Mekong Tourism Coordinating Office is a regional tourism collaboration, and there are many around the world, which in our case encompasses the countries of Cambodia, China, and with China it's the provinces in southwestern China, Yunnan and Guangxi, Laos, PDR, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam. So we are funded by the 6 tourism ministries, by the 6 governments. We are based in Bangkok, Thailand, hosted in the offices of the Ministry of Tourism and Sports. And so our mandate is to, number one, promote the region as a single tourism destination, to really kind of look at cross-border travel and trying to kind of, connect the various experiences. Number 2, look at capacity building and really working a lot with smaller businesses as well. And then number 3, it's also looking at product or experience development as well. So I think what's important there is, and first when I was appointed to this job, is that actually the word coordinating is actually plays a big role. So we're different than other tourism offices. And I used to work for the Canadian Tourism Commission, and there are obviously other ones that have huge marketing budgets. So our role is really to coordinate with the 6 governments and also with the private sector. So coordinating is really at the front and center of our mandate and our activities. And as such, we've built also a private-public partnership framework called Destination Mekong, where we execute our initiatives that we plan in collaboration with both the public and the private sector.
Thank you, Jens. Thank you for that introduction. Again, it's a wide, large region, very culturally rich. Both Sam and I have had good fortune of spending a lot of time in the region and have really enjoyed it. Help us understand some of the success stories, Jens, that you had in positioning that region from a tourism point of view. There are some very large arrivals, the countries like Thailand or China or Vietnam, but then there are markets that are relatively small and niche. So help us understand how these different markets were positioned and how do they all work together?
Great question. I think it's people always ask me, how can you actually work with 6 governments and in some way quite unique and diverse governments. But I think I have to congratulate our stakeholders in our tourism ministries, because we're part of what's called the Greater Mekong Sub-Region framework. And the framework was developed in 1992 by the Asian Development Bank and encompasses other sectors as well, from energy and health and agriculture and so on. So tourism is one, but we're the only one that is really then self-funded. So obviously the question is then, how can we execute various activities that we have? So it's really, on one hand, what we have is we have a strategic framework, which with assistance of the Asian Development Bank is published by our countries. This really gives us a roadmap to go forward. And in that roadmap, there might be capacity building for small businesses, there might be social media campaign, there's investment frameworks, and all of that is in there. So with us, we know as a foundation, for the next 5 on the marketing side or 10 years on the economic side, what we need to do. So we meet 2 times a year with the governments, with our tourism working group meeting, and the governments share and we share and then see how we can collaborate. We also bring development partners in there as well. So it's a very collaborative environment. then I just quickly before mentioned Destination Mekong. So our funding normally, when we look at this, we get funding from the 6 governments that covers our operational cost. But there's not much funding left for really marketing activities, and this is just based on our legal structure, how we're set up at this point. So, when I worked for the Canadian Tourism Commission, 10, 15 years ago, any marketing campaign or any activities that we did needed to be matched, by the private sector one-on-one. So if there is money from the government, then the private sector comes in, and contributes to this activity. So with this Destination Mekong partnership framework now, we're able to bring in the private and the public sector, but it's not, these organizations don't provide cash, they provide services. And when we add this up, actually, we're getting to really a 50-50 split, in terms of the money that the governments provide and what then is contributed via this Destination Mekong framework. So just to give you a few examples, what we've done is, so on one hand, we don't have the big money to kind of drive big marketing campaigns with advertising and so on. So we created a campaign, which was our flagship campaign called Mekong Moments. With Mekong Moments, basically, we motivate everyone to share their experiences in visual format, photos and videos, put it on their own social media, tag it with hashtag Mekong Moments, and then this content gets aggregated into the platform and then connects via our unique social commerce technology with the businesses. So that means that now we're activating, on one hand, our stakeholder group, which are the visitors and the residents, on the other hand, the businesses itself that are motivating now people to do that. And then on the other hand, the governments that built the platform, overall to do that. So we did another campaign out of that called the Mekong Mini Movie Festival. Same concept. And there people shared 60-second videos. This campaign is now in its 3rd year. And in the first year, we got over 1.5 million video views in the first year alone, with very limited advertising budget because we don't have much more. But so everyone kind of contributed to that. The companies came in, like even Rosewood came in and tour operators came in that created their sub-campaigns within that umbrella. So another initiative that we did together with the Asian Development Bank and funded by the Australian government is our Mekong Innovative Startups and Tourism program called MIST. So with MIST, we're looking to kind of activate passionate entrepreneurs in the region, to really connect with the legacy tourism ecosystem in 2 categories, social enterprises and travel technology. So again, there's some very interesting innovations and ventures that come out of that. And because of this platform, we're not an accelerator program, we were able to help these organizations and these entrepreneurs to connect with people like you, for example, Abid, but also to connect with investors to grow their businesses.
Superb. That's fantastic, Jens. What can destinations do to better position themselves and gain a competitive advantage? Now, a lot of these nations that are part of Mekong tourism, in some ways, they compete for the same visitor. So what can destinations do to position themselves and gain some competitive advantage?
Obviously, every destination, is different. All our 6 countries are very different, so and both you and Sam talked already about experience in the previous conversation with Lapland. Now, actually, and Abid, our brand a little bit. Actually, we position the entire region as Experience Mekong. But what's unique about our brand is that it's actually powered by small, responsible travel businesses and social enterprises. We created another initiative called the Experience Mekong Collection, which has now over 350 small businesses that provide a social impact in 6 categories, from stay, taste, shop, do, cruise, and tour. And when it comes to cruise, it's more around river cruising, obviously, because of the river. Now, these businesses, they actually provide the experience that people, inspire to go and visit the Mekong region. It's these homestays, it's these little shops where people are selling handicrafts made from the village, or it's a restaurant that is it's a training restaurant as well that brings kids in. And we partner with the university, so every year actually we showcase one business per country, and then we connect with the students that write up the case study. And when you look at these businesses, like I picked one out, the Fair Cambodian Circus, which is it's an artisan circus in Cambodia, which brings kids from the villages in there and train them. And now even Cirque du Soleil hires some of these artists, these kids, so it's phenomenal. So these are the things that make the region so unique. So we made it our job to curate these businesses and really we call them our shining light in these stars. And now in this period of the COVID-19 pandemic, we feel it's our job to protect these businesses, because obviously, as we can imagine, they're struggling to survive, because we feel if they go away, a part of the Mekong region will go away as well.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I think you're spot on, Jens. A lot of times it is about communicating the attributes of the destinations, not so much creating new things. And hats off to you and your stakeholders. You're doing that. One last question before I turn it over to Sam. What kind of conversations are you involved in these days with your stakeholders as you prepare for living with COVID?
Well, what we have done is very early on, we provided information to our stakeholders, but then we activated what we call our Mekong Tourism Advisory Group, called METEC. So we have over 80 people from all the 6 countries a part of METEC, and they come from different areas, from hotel, tourism, academia, development partners, airlines, and so on, from all different sectors. And we organize, various what we call virtual strategic roundtables and virtual Mekong Tourism Advisory Group meetings. So one is where the governments give an update on the various situation, what is happening, and how this is progressing, which is obviously very important to the stakeholder. And then on the other hand, we invite experts in to then, kind of inspire this Mekong Tourism Advisory Group, to kind of see it, how do we deal with, responsible tourism post-COVID-19? How do we look at climate change, and bundle that, together in the recovery process? How do we look at, over-tourism and overcrowding, when tourism starts again? And then also, what can we do right now, to really restart an accelerated, what we call balanced tourism recovery? And a little bit later, I'll tell you about a few campaigns that we're looking to launch that we feel are really quite innovative, because the thing we do is really based, on this collaborative environment, that we're really inclusive, so that really even a walking tour business can participate together with a big hotel company, together to promote the region in a collaborative way.
Oh, that's superb. Thank you for that, Jens. Let me turn it over to Sam, and I'll be back with you in a moment.
Thank you, Abid. Yes, very interesting comments you make about the Mekong region. How has the marketing positioning changed with the technology? That's for one part, I'm interested in that. And secondly, and what are the changes in the requirements and expectations of the travelers? You touched on the Mekong moments, hashtags, and you have lots of initiatives on social media, but maybe you can elaborate on or some other issues that you may have in terms of marketing positioning.
Yeah, thank you. Because over the last 5 years, we've been able to build this platform and this framework of various initiatives that are all, interconnect in one way or another. we're able to, execute fairly quickly with new initiatives. So one that we're planning to launch in July is called Mekong Memories. So very similar to Mekong Moments, but Mekong Moments where people share their experiences in visual format when they are actually having that experience. With Mekong Memories, it's going back as we're sitting at home, or maybe being able, in your case, being able to travel in Europe, but not able to come to Asia. But, as I know, both you and Abid have been to the Mekong region quite frequently in the past. So I'm sure you have hundreds of photos on your phone, and probably sometimes in the evening with a nice glass of wine, you're reminiscing and looking at these old memories, So Mekong Memories is all about working with our stakeholders. They go out and they go to their past guests. So let's say Banyan Tree Hotels, which Abid, you know very well, so let's say they go out and they go to their past guests and say, hey, you know what, you've stayed at our hotels in the Mekong region. If you had a great time and if you took some pictures, why don't you share them and you can win a night at the Banyan Tree Hotel when travel opens up again. Why wouldn't you do it, right? So on one hand, then, this builds a content cloud of experiences. All the businesses do it, not just luxury hotels like Banyan Tree Hotels, but restaurants, souvenir shops, shopping malls, walking tours, everyone can do it, everyone can participate. And because then also the business would promote it by also having these past guests share the hashtag of the business. So in this case, let's say hashtag Banyan Tree Bangkok. Now, we connected then through the technology. So when then Sam sees your photo, from a couple of years ago in Bangkok, then he can connect directly into this business. Now, the second piece of the campaign that we're launching is called Mekong Deals. Now, Mekong Deals now, allows any business, to showcase, deals in voucher format that are non-refundable. And so in this way, we're providing cash directly to the businesses that are struggling right now to survive, so especially the small ones. But we know also the bigger ones have also trouble as well. So anyone can do that. Now, if Banyan Tree now promotes this campaign, to past guests, then the person that sees this memory will also see the deal, right? So the more then a business promotes it, this Mekong Memories campaign, the more also they're looking to potentially sell these gift certificates or these vouchers, promote the business for traveling later. And overall, as everyone is doing, it's collaboratively building this very powerful content cloud of real past experience people have had. And obviously people only share good experiences because they want to win a prize, So suddenly now it's kind of like the concept of advertising. The more you see these memories, the more you feel then, well, you gotta visit the Mekong region.
Very good.
When you can.
Yeah. The Chinese tourist has been quite an important part, I can imagine, of the travelers coming to the region. We have a question here from Arvo Hartikainen. He asks, has there been a resurgence of Chinese tourists already, or are most still holding off on international travel?
So at this point, still international travel is not possible. So I mean, all the countries in the Mekong region have opened up to others as well in the world. So right now, haven't opened up. They are what we call new travel bubbles, that are being formed via bilateral relations. This is also where a collaboration in the region comes to bear, because the countries have been working with each other for a long time. And for a travel bubble to create, there needs to be trust, on both sides, because in the end, no one wants to have second waves and someone is not really signing a quick bilateral agreement. So this is why actually now these regional tourism collaborations really reap all the rewards of the hard labor that have been done for the past decades. So to answer your question, no, right now there is no international travel, but China is obviously an important market. We're looking to create a digital platform with a company called Dragon Trail in China, which is a virtual travel mart, where then companies in the region can connect directly to travel agents in China. For now, to build the relationships later on, and then also to learn about itineraries and products and experiences when travel opens up again.
Thank you. I have a final question, which is in regards to sustainable travel or sustainability. And through my years in Asia, I remember joining various conferences which talked about sustainable travel and the initiatives, also supported by the government and the government ministries and so on. Could you just share your thoughts? Where are we now when it comes to sustainability in terms of the travel, particularly looking at the hotels, the tour operators, the condition of the nature? Because there has been some concern over the years. I know it has been getting better, but maybe there are some initiatives you may want to share with the viewers, because they are like me, love the region and always want to come back.
Thank you, and great question. And obviously sustainability and responsible tourism is something that is our main priority. I mentioned the Experience Mekong collection before, where all these businesses, kind of provide a social impact, so that already drives inclusive tourism. One of our mandates is obviously poverty alleviation and really, looking at collaborative framework, where we can include all the various stakeholder groups, especially local communities as well. So to your point, I think, there has been overcrowding in parts of the destinations. I mean, we know beaches in Philippines and also Thailand were closed, and they come out stronger out of this process. On all cases mostly. Also, areas like Siem Reap, Angkor Wat, that right now is not seeing overcrowding, but obviously has seen overcrowding. So it's a great time to visit now if you can get into Cambodia. But no, I mean, I think we've done a couple of things. One is we've partnered with an NGO called SunX, which has just launched a global climate change campaign called Bend the Trend, which was launched by the Ministry of Tourism of Malta and the WTTC, the World Travel Tourism Council. So we're the first region that have been joining this campaign, because we believe that climate change is an existential threat. And when we get out of the COVID pandemic, and when we look at tourism recovery, climate change needs to be part of it. The second thing we're collaborating with is the One Planet initiative. So One Planet is an initiative that is funded by the French government together with UNEP, the United Environment Program, and UNWTO, the World Tourism Organization. And it has made its focus on single-use plastic reduction. And as you know, having been in the region, single-use plastic pollution is a big issue in the region. And especially during this pandemic, I think overall, everywhere in the world, single-use plastic usage has increased again, for all the reasons that we know. And there's not too much we can do, obviously, about it. But when we get out of it, we need. So we're on board. We're one of the first signatories of this very important initiative, because, again, into the recovery process when we get out of COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Jens, for those comments. And over to you, Abid.
Thanks, Sam. Jens, one question, and then we'll bring everybody back together for some other questions that we might have. You talked a little bit about sustainability, and you are correct that with COVID, for all the reasons, unfortunately, single-use tools, whether it's gloves, masks, amenities in the hotels, restaurant, whatever the case might be, we have gone the other way. Are there things available? Are there things that we can do today not to regress from environmental point of view? Have you seen any good practices that nations have taken on?
Oh, that's a difficult question. I mean, obviously, I think there's a lot of good work being done overall. I think, as I mentioned before, during this time right now with COVID-19, sustainability may not be top of mind right now because businesses are looking to survive and governments are under immense pressure, to save the economy in countries. But I think, we're working also with the Asian Development Bank and we're seeing some of the plans, the recovery plans that are being put together. And many of these plans do include, climate change and plastic reduction and all of that. And I think that's a good sign. I think, there have been a lot of good work being done, especially initiatives when it comes to single-use plastic reduction. I think climate change is a more complicated problem, but nevertheless not less important, But I think obviously you can see the plastic garbage at the beach and in a river and all of that. So I mean, I think various governments, for example, Thailand, has done or put some very proactive measures in place to combat that. I think now we need to then come back to that and make sure that when we look at the recovery process, that we bundle this together and that it's not just about quickly, getting back to mass tourism. I've seen photos, I'm not going to mention the destinations, but, in Europe and in Asia, where tourism has started and the beaches are just as crowded as before. So I think we need to step back, and it's not the fault of the travelers so much. Obviously, I mean, there's no social distancing in place, but I think it's the destinations that need to be managed. And it's obviously difficult because people are looking now to kind of recover the lost money and surviving their businesses. But this is this balance that we need to achieve for the long term, for a better tomorrow when it comes to tourism.
That is fabulous, Jens. Thank you so much for that. Sam, if it's okay, let's bring everybody back together. And I do have a question for Jan at this particular point. I think it'll be a great segue. Jan, Jens talked about sustainability efforts and some of the nations as to how they focus. You obviously look after one of the most pristine destinations and growing the visitor arrivals from over 1 million and hopefully soon more than that. How do you think you will keep the sustainability initiatives in place, the pristine characteristics of the environment in place, and yet welcome more visitors so that the businesses in the region flourish?
Very good question. Thank you, Abid. Of course, there's always quantity versus quality in terms of service, in terms of clients, in terms of markets. And this is something that we really need to sort of take into consideration. Especially if we look at international clients, Lapland, Finland, Scandinavia, Finland and Lapland, by no means necessarily they are, no means we are a budget destination. So we will always be sort of far away and sort of far away island. Always have to fly in. That means that we have to support to make air travel less harmful for the environment. That's one thing. Is that how much do we really want? How many clients do we want? Or instead of having seasons, can we distribute the clients more evenly around the year? And that's why I think we need to be looking into markets which would be more of year-round markets than just for one peak season. And this is of course not not easy in today's world. It's a very competitive field. Tourism, we're competing with many great destinations, Southeast Asia and Caribbean and Alaska and South America. So there's numerous of beautiful destinations in the world. But I think we would all benefit from sort of like a joint initiative to focus on the quality of the service, focus on the quality of sort of the stay, and the focus on the quality of life of the local people. Because I think that's one of the key issues, is that all good products come from sort of, at least in some measure, about like cultural aspects of the region, and to appreciate the authentic cultural aspects of any given region, it has to be a living culture. It can't be, you can't just sort of take something from the past and say, okay, this is what we are all the way to the future, but it has to be a living, present cultural thing. And I think this is a very important thing to preserve.
I think you said it very correctly. Culture is obviously very unique to a destination, as are the natural attributes. Those two things, those two attributes can never be replicated. Jens, you talked about creating this balance. Now, in some of the markets that have been in the tourism for a little while, certainly price points filter out some of the people. But there are multiple different types of accommodations, businesses, restaurants, tourist activities that obviously nations want to allow others to experience and talk about it. And Jens, this is a question for you, because you look after multiple different countries at the same time. How do we get that balance?
That's a difficult question, but I think I look at balance, almost like as our human body as well. So I mean, give you an analogy. So let's say you have a headache, and you don't feel well. So what do? You take a headache pill. You feel okay for a little while. Then the next day the headache comes back. You take another 2 pills and so on. So in the end, you're never really solving the fundamental problem, that's causing your headache, but you're masking it with more and more pills, which then in the end will get you more sick, than having the headache just, run its course, and that's, I think, the same with tourism. So we're looking to mask the problem. And I think we need to step back and say, like, okay, what's the fundamental problem that is causing, the issues that we have? And this conversation can only happen when we include all the various stakeholders into the conversation, from the government to the local communities, to the small entrepreneur, to the big airlines and the big hotel companies as well. And I think, kind of peeling back the onion and say, like, okay, what is the issue in a certain destination? Not every destination has an issue of overcrowding or over tourism. Some have the opposite, right? Again, then stepping back and say, well, why is that the case? How can we fix that? And then, it comes to a balance. I like what Janice said. I think we need to distribute the wealth as well, looking at different customer segments, looking at the right customer segment for the right product. And also in the case of the Mekong region, we have prime to crowding, so, we can, because we have infrastructure in place with low-cost airlines and infrastructure, driving, and we can actually go and get destinations this week, and that will contribute as well, so people kind of take part and get the benefits of tourism overall, not a few people. The leakage factor, we need to make sure that the money stays in the communities and that there are policies in place that ensure that, and especially in this region, maybe not as much in Finland, but some of the money actually never stays in the country or not in the community. So for me, balance is not looking at taking the headache pill to make the pain go away for a little while, but really looking at the source of the problem to really look to correct that, but do that in collaboration with all stakeholders.
Well, Jens, your analogy, the only thing constantly taking that headache pill, all it does is it makes you an addict of that painkiller. I don't think it resolves the issue at all.
But that's kind of what's happening. I think people are getting addicted to these tours, to these mass tours, and then it's very hard to get back to it, right? To kind of pull that plug, And I think that's what many people say right now. Now is the time. This is our chance to reset tourism, because when we're taking these headache pills all the time, it's very hard to stop because you're getting addicted. So I think I like your follow-up analogy.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Hey, gentlemen, this question is for both of you, but maybe Jan, if you don't mind taking the lead on it. How do you think that the traditional itineraries that your visitors have taken part in pre-COVID days, do you think they'll change moving forward in any way? What impact do you think the reopening will have?
I think this is the question that's on everyone's mind. At least in Finland, we have this discussion about what's the new normal going to be like. What's the post-COVID-19 world going to look like, and are we going to take things more seriously, like the climate change and everything about the way we eat? Should we eat less meat because we can see that many of these epidemics have sort of the birthplace comes from livestock, so the transfer from livestock to humans. We had very good discussion with Sam-Erik about this, I think, a few months ago, when we talked about the previous epidemics and how they affected consumer behavior. Just a few weeks ago, there was a big study on 54 different markets across the globe about consumer confidence and consumer behavior, and I'm kind of hesitant to say this, but sort of unfortunately or fortunately for some, there doesn't seem to be much change. As soon as we get back to normal, the consumer behavior seems to be back to normal. Of course, travel industry might have a little bit of disadvantage here, because when you're moving across the border, people are maybe a little bit anxious about social distancing and flying, being in a cramped airplane. But like Sam-Erik's experience from the past and this new information from the markets, I wouldn't be so sure that we're looking into a very big dramatic change. Of course, from a service provider perspective, you need to be able to take care of the hygiene level like up a notch. But at least in Finland, it's been top notch anyway so far. So sort of just making sure that we communicate things that we do to the market and to the customers. I think that's sort of enough reassuring. But I'm not that sure that there would be a great change. I think things will be fairly soon back to normal.
Well, human beings are very resilient, and at times we do have short-term memories. Jens talked about the beaches that are opened up. They're packed as if we have conquered this virus. And unfortunately, as we know, it is still a challenge. It's a challenge that we are living with. And unfortunately, until such time, each community and every person takes an active role in stopping the spread, the issue is going to go on. Do you have any additional thoughts in addition to what you mentioned about the typical areas and how they will change?
Well, I completely agree with Jan. I think from my point, obviously everyone is kind of thinking, when is it going to start? When are the borders opening up? When, can I fly again? And how is it going to look like? I think there are two pieces that we actually don't control. So one thing is actually government policies and bilateral relationships. So businesses or even destinations have very little control over that. And the second thing, having lived through SARS, at that time I was working for the Canadian Tourism Commission in Canada. I think is consumer confidence, right? So I think trust and confidence will be some of the most important drivers, because once borders open up, if it's travel bubbles, through bilateral relationships, or everything opens up at some point, it's not going to be a switch of a button. I think in the end, people need to feel confident and they need to feel that trust. And the World Travel Tourism Council, WTTC, that's launched this Safe Travel Stamp, which I think is a great initiative, because this initiative, overall drives confidence and trust, and also some consistency, right? I mean, in Thailand, the Tourism Authority of Thailand and the Ministry of Public Health is doing a great initiative with the Safe Health measurement standard, for businesses. But I think if everyone has their own, and if Jan comes from Finland and looking to go, Cambodia and Laos and Myanmar and Thailand, and every country has a different, standard and different measurement and this and that, he's like, wow, I don't know what to do anymore, So I think there needs to be also consistency, with these standards, and I think that's where WTTC is doing a fabulous job, and a lot of destinations are signing on to that. So I think that's, from my standpoint, trust and confidence will be pillars. When they are overcome, I think then travel will slowly get back to normal.
I think it is critical that the consistent initiatives are implemented across the board, particularly if we ever to go back to international travel. While domestic travel would come back first, and then it might be regional travel with bilateral agreements for the international travel to thrive. There has got to be some consistent initiatives. Sam, we are approaching the end of it, and quite candidly, I very often forget in these conversations that we have a certain time allocated, and I'm really enjoying this. Anything else that we need to talk about?
Well, yes, I think we need to talk about, and let's the clock run. There is a question that came from Arvo Hartikainen. I think he's Finnish from the name. He's asking, are you seeing a trend of conscious consumerism? Are travelers specifically selecting hotels or destinations based on sustainability initiatives? And what are the most important things that hoteliers can do to positively impact the community and or environment? So maybe, Janne, could you respond to that?
Yes, I think that is a key question. From until now, we've seen a lot of talk about conscious consumers and ecologically minded, sustainably minded consumers, but still, when we talk to tour operators, it's still till now it hasn't really been there, even in the top three. That okay, this destination needs to be this, or this hotel needs to be sustainable in order for it to be in my sort of shopping basket. But I had a wind energy seminar here in Yllas yesterday, and I did a little background checking for that, and actually found a number from Booking.com which says 68% of be taking into consideration sustainability accommodation in their next, and of course this is a customers that okay, how are you going to behave next? Of course, how you behave will be very different from what you say you're going to do next. But I think the numbers are growing steadily. I remember some 3 years ago there was like a 35 customers said that okay, the sustainability of the accommodation has an impact on my decision. But I think I wouldn't. I think it would be very brave for someone to put that in the front line and to make it as a sort of a decision-making thing. I think it needs to be in 2020 and forward. Every business needs to have sustainability in its DNA automatically, but I don't think it will be a key like unique selling point in that sense. I think everyone should have it. So we should sort of, the social acceptance of tourism industry in general will be sort of high, but as a unique selling point, I think for some very special, like Costa Rica is a very good example of this. Like you have destinations which can be branded as sort of ecological or sustainable, but for larger destinations, I think it should be in the DNA. But I don't think it's a unique selling point in itself.
Yeah, Jens, do you have any comment on this?
I completely agree with Janne. I think obviously it would be a dream for all of us to, kind of say yes. I mean, like, people are shifting more to, conscious consumerism, but I agree that people go very quickly back to their old habits as well. I do think that there's an opportunity, but I do agree with Janne. I think there needs sustainability and responsible tourism practices need to be part of the DNA of the operations and the destination. That's why we call the Experience Collection not the Responsible Travel Guide. We call it the Experience Mekong Collection because all these businesses are sustainable or responsible businesses with a social impact, but it's about experiences. So we're trying to kind of, almost like, how do you say, like, make it easier for people to go into that responsible travel thing, because there's still a perception, say like, okay, especially let's say if you come to Southeast Asia, if I stay in a responsible travel space, accommodation, for example, I have a cold shower and I have to sleep on the floor and I have to do all these kind of things, which is obviously not the case, but there's a perception around it. So we're looking to lead with experiences, but all the businesses in our collection, over 300 of them, they need to fulfill these requirements. And I think that's very much in line what Janne is also advocating for. And I think that's how tourism needs to go forward. And
then another question, and the last question came from Marko Hytönen. What is the outlook for 2020-21 season, and what is normally your booking window? Jens, could you start with that?
Let me find my crystal ball. I think we're looking at obviously domestic tourism now, but I mean, when we look at contribution to GDP, let's say take Thailand, for example, and Abid knows that very well. I mean, domestic tourism doesn't compare to international tourism as it relates to that share, so again, I mean, I think, for the time being, I think, we're looking to kind of open tourism up to create some confidence and in consumers. And then I think having these bilateral relationships on the regional side, and also maybe potentially with China and other countries. Thailand has various conversations, also with countries like Japan and Taiwan and Hong Kong and so on. So I think that will be the step forward, and then kind of building programs, and campaigns around it, to really, make sure that travelers that start traveling internationally are not put off by a potentially mediocre or different experience that they may have.
Yeah. And Janne, what do you say on the outlook for the 2020-21 season?
Mixing. I mean, recognize early bookings. We're talking about the booking window. Is that we already much more in early than we had previous years. From our main markets, and the Central European countries, but the big question is, will they be able to travel? Now we're opening first for and fly But UK is a big question mark for us because it's very important for our Christmas travel season from basically beginning of December and going over New Year's. So that's a really big question. But so I think the consumer confidence is already there. The people still want to travel. A lot of people had restrictions in the summertime, so that will generate more trade coming for the coming winter. But then, and then we know the accessibility on the accessibility side. We all know that the airlines are hurting bad right now. So, is everyone going to survive? That's a big question. We know that our own airline Finnair is in good shape, and they will be. They're already opening the operations for us in beginning of July. So next week they will start flying again. From Helsinki to Kittilä, and then in early December, the direct international flights will start as scheduled with the information that we have right now. So I think it's a sort of if everything goes smoothly, and I hope that everything goes smoothly, we will have minimal second wave or no second wave at all. Then I think we'll be looking safely into the next season, but if there is a next wave, then of course everything will be a total mystery.
Yeah.
But we'll of course be prepared for next season as we always been, and in the long term, I think this will take a few years for us to get back to the level of the previous season.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Janne. Abid, it's a customary that we finish off this discussion with a feel-good story. Should we pop that into the oven as a last point before we end the show?
Absolutely. Again, these topics and these conversations are so engaging. Honestly, I could spend another hour, but I know we've already taken a lot of these gentlemen's time, and I wouldn't want to be disrespectful for that. I will have to bring them back. As Sam-Erik mentioned, we always finish our session with feel-good stories, something uplifting, some great practices that you folks might have experienced, or for that matter, something that you might have learned about yourself during COVID. So if you don't mind, Jens, we'll start with you.
Wow. I'll tell you about our Mekong Tourism Forum that we've done in 2017 in Luang Prabang in Laos, and some of you that have been to Luang Prabang, it's a beautiful small town in Laos, which is a UNESCO heritage town, but it doesn't have the big meeting rooms or convention centers to put on a conference, with let's say 300-400 people. So what we decided to do is actually then to say, okay, we actually have the sessions all over town, so that this destination becomes the venue, and where we had around 50 businesses come together and host the forum, where people then, the delegates kind of went from one area to the next. So there might be a session on river cruising, river cruise tourism, on a river cruise boat, on food tourism in a restaurant, on nature-based tourism in the botanical garden, on responsible tourism, on a social enterprise in a rice field, and so on. So it was an experiment, and I didn't sleep for 3 to 4 months to put this together. But it was so engaging because we've been to so many conferences when we're stuck in a hotel room and in a meeting room, and I have nothing against that. But we kind of came up with a new concept just because we had to innovate, because we just didn't have the space available to put and have all these sessions. So, is that in a workable situation, we wanted to make it work in Luang Prabang, and we found a solution that at that time in their report on as a best practice study for I situation, be flexible, and I think if we all work together and we not have it, we can come up with tourism for tomorrow. Thank you.
Very well said. Thank you so much. And Jan, over to you. Anything personal that you would like to share, or anything that you might have seen in the industry that is uplifting?
Thank you, Abid, and thank you, Jens, for a very uplifting story. We were basically, I don't know about you guys, but I seem to only have 11 months this year, because from the beginning of the whole Corona thing, and then 30 consecutive days, only thing that we're doing, we're communicating to the public and to our companies about the situation, and basically 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, we're thinking about the situation and what's the impact on our industry and the companies in the area. But then in the middle of this, there came one PhD student was doing her PhD about brand love, and she had this publication where she said that the Yllas is the most loved brand in Finland as a travel destination, and we were of course exhilarated, and then at the same time, basically next week, we had to close down the ski resort, we had to close down the cross-country ski trails, and we had to close down everything. And while people were, of course, understanding why we did this, they were really disappointed, because it was just in the eve of the best spring skiing season. So a lot of people were disappointed, and then I think it was Norway, Visit Norway, where I first saw the Dream Now, Travel Later. And then everyone sort of picked up on it. I saw massive campaigns from Dubai, and we of course don't have the same kind of funding as Visit Dubai, and we're thinking with our content creator Eetu, who's a really superb young man, and we're thinking, what can we do to sort of ease the pain and comfort the people who are disappointed that they can't come here. And we came up with this idea of doing like cold turkey Facebook lives. Like, we didn't practice, we haven't done this before, we didn't have any time to plan anything, but we just asked our fans on the Facebook, where would you, if you would be in Yllas right now, where would you like to go? And then of course people replied their favorite places, and then we said, okay, tomorrow at noon we'll be there, we'll go skiing, we'll go snowshoeing, if we're able to walk, if we're able to take our bikes there, we have 100 kilometers of winter biking trails as well. So that way we began this sort of month-long Facebook Live thing, where we tried to sort of comfort our fans that couldn't come this year, and said, okay, maybe you come in the summertime. And this was huge. We had hundreds of comments each time that we were on top of some fells and enjoying the view. And we always had that one person who said, oh, I'm so envious that how can you do this to us? But on one comment, there was 999 comments which said, thank you. This is so good that we feel so much better than now that we can enjoy our favorite places. And that was really, really sort of inspiring for us, and really sort of one of the top moments in my career, I could actually say then. And it's sort of, the lesson is that you always, you know, it's always darkest before the dawn, and you always have to sort of, when you don't know what to do, then don't worry about it, just do something. And it was a really good experience, and I think this what you guys are doing is it's sort of exactly the same. Is that we have to find new ways to communicate and bring hope, and because that's what business is all about, is to bring experiences and a little escapism from the everyday life, and that's why we have to be sort of ready to take the leap of faith on multiple occasions to provide exceptional experiences to our customers.
That is incredible. Well, thank you so much to both of you, Jens and Jan, thanking us. That was conversation again. I could care for it. That won't be done. So thanks for sharing all your insights. Now talking about doing some sessions on sustainable tourism. Hopefully with pandemic it will become front and center, so that we do find that balance, and it will not be like my a weight losing target at the beginning of the year that the second day I forget about it. Or like the sign I used to have at one of my bars that said free beer tomorrow, and the tomorrow never came. So hopefully these elements would stay front and center so that these destinations grow and they flourish for generations to enjoy. So thank you for sharing all that. Sam, over to you.
Well, thank you everyone for joining today. And if this is the first time you're watching this show, here is you saw that little button called subscribe. Don't hesitate to subscribe, whether you are on Facebook or you're on YouTube. But also on YouTube, we usually have a video somewhere here popping up. It's going to be another video that you may want to take a look at after the show, if you're watching it from replay. So again, thank you very much to all the LinkedIn viewers who joined. Really appreciate the shout out to Marko Hytönen, Arvo Hardikainen, for contributing with your questions. They were all great questions, and that gave our guests Jens and Janne a chance to pass on their thoughts on this. So with this thoughts, we'll look forward to seeing you next time. So thank you very much for all of you, and see you soon again.